No, it's okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you for coming, Kenny. It's really important that you're here to share your input. Of course, we would love more people to come, but everything you say here is going to be really valuable for the city. And hopefully for you, to inform these resilience hubs. So that's why we're here today, to talk about resilience hubs. And sounds like we're not going to need interpretations, so we'll just skip that. So as I mentioned, we're talking about resilience hubs, what kind of services they can provide, and also how the city right now is preparing for major events and emergencies. And then we're going to talk a little bit about 2 proposed sites for resilience hubs. So this location is one proposed site, and then another one in Mountain View.
Not where?
Mountain View. The Mountain View Recreation
Oh,
Center.
Mountain View.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So any questions about that?
No, I'm just here to learn.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we're in our welcome right now. We'll introduce our project team. We'll hear from you. We have a couple of presentations about power outages and resilience hubs. You can just stop us for questions at any time. And then we want to hear from you about any ideas you have on things you want to see, what kind of services or programming that would be helpful to you, and also the communities that you live in. So I'm Jazz with Kearns and West. We're helping the city right now with outreach. We have some folks here over at the city and SCG. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm work with the Department of General Services, and well, I'll tell you more about why I'm here today. And very glad that you're here. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us.
So I'm Kathy, I'm with the city of San Diego, under Department of General Services and Lindsay's team, supporting this project.
I'm Bree. I'm on the climate adaptation team at SCG. So we're helping with the project.
Hi, I'm Risa. I'm with Jazz and the Kearns and West team. I'm just helping her today with taking some notes.
Nice to meet you all.
Yeah.
So we'll have you all introduce yourselves in a second. These are just our guides for productive discussions. We hope that you actively participate. We want to hear from you. And just make sure everyone has time to share. I don't think we'll have any problems with that today. So we'd love to hear your name, your community that you're representing, or that you live in, that you work in, and then just to start off, thinking about what your experience has been like during a power outage or another hazard event in the city.
My name is Kenny Key. I live in Emerald Hills, in Canto area, and 50-year resident up there. My mom bought the house when I was like 7, so I grew up there, a lot of memories. And now I take care of her from home. She's 100% disabled. And we had a power outage last week that affected us. And I heard about this through our Choice Valley community. They had a meeting, and they sent out, recap of the meeting. And I missed the one yesterday, so I was like, oh, I can make this one. So I'm here. I'm glad that it's supposed to be here or something, because we just had an outage, and it's kind of hectic for me because I got to care for my mom, and she got equipment in there that I got to make sure that she can use. She got breathing issues, COPD, and stuff like that.
Right. How long was the power outage?
About 5 hours,
Oh, wow.
from like 5 to 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing about it, we got solar,
Okay.
and so it's something going on. I would love an SDG person to come by, because the power don't go all the way out. It still be on like low. Some plugs work, some don't. Some lights come on, some don't. I'm worried about some kind of electrical problem. But I call SDG, they said it's an outage. I'm like, we got this, my mom got the solar through, she got the solar through, what was it, Grid Alternative? Through She was the last one to get it through this program, and they stopped it like 2 months later. We didn't pay not a dime. They renting our roof for 20 years. We're like 8 years, we're 5 years into it right now, 6 years into it right now. They would not give us a battery. I was begging them to give us a battery. Why would y'all not give us a battery? When the power go out, we screwed. And we got solar. That didn't make no sense to me as a senior citizen, helping senior, but when the power's out. So anyway, was just so glad I did that for my mama, make that happen. We don't worry about our electric bill. And it's a big house, 5-bedroom house, 3 people living up in there. And I do not worry about my bill. If we in the negative, it rolls back because our house is positioned where it catches everything. All the way, you know, maximum. That's why they came to our house. You got a maximum peak, no obstructions, and I think we got 16 panels, something like that. I think 10 panels. But yeah, it's. I love that neighborhood where I'm at. It's beautiful, beautiful. We see the beauty of San Diego every day, all day. When we look west, we look 360 actually. My mom picked she was just blessed to get that home, you know, and I just want to preserve it, and I want to bring attention to my neighborhood because we've been neglected over there for 50 years. You know, coming out of the houses that we live in, were the first tract of brand new development that black people could buy, coming out of red line. And so it was kind of like, you know, we were upgraded or moving up in as far as young black people, how we felt. You know, me and my sister, rest in peace, she died last month. So it's just me and my mom now. She was 60 years old. But just got a connection to my community right now. I'm a retired county employee as a heavy equipment operator for the Department of Public Works. I'm an Air Force veteran. And I'm taking care of my mom. I'm a community activist for youth in the community. 15 years running Game Face Academy, Game Face Video. We teach youth ages 12 to 24, videography and photography. Summer Stephan funded me for about 3 years, about $150,000. You know, she poured seed money into what we do into our youth. I say all that to say to you guys, I want you guys to understand I'm a lifelong public servant. And my family was prior to me. I'm just a family tradition. My dad was a firefighter, retired firefighter, city firefighter. My granddad, but my dad was in the Air Force. I got stationed at the same base he got stationed. There's so much layers of public service, and I love my community. You're looking at somebody who loves his community and feels disrespected by the city of San Diego. You just let it be plain. That's why I'm here. I want to learn what you guys are doing. I want it for my community. Everything we got coming for Emerald Hills and Encanto.
Thank you for your service.
We really appreciate you
Sorry for your loss.
for sharing.
It's been a tough 6 months. It's been a tough 5 years. Just fighting the city. Get it done, don't get nothing done for us out there. It's really disheartening.
We're going to talk more about the things that you need in your community today. So really thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'd love to hear from you as well.
Hi, I'm Kristen Drexler. I'm just particularly interested in the community resilient hubs in cities and neighborhoods. So my company has supported the development of other resilient hubs in other communities, not in City of San Diego, but there's a lot of grant money out there right now and opportunities. So I'm interested to see what the requirements are for the resilient hubs and how that process is going, kind of how it compares to other projects that I've worked on.
Yeah, it sounds like you have some good experience and insights to share today. So All right, well, Lindsay's gonna talk a little bit about climate hazards and kind of why resilience hubs are important.
Yeah, so we're talking about power outages today, but that's not all. I'll back up a little bit. So the city of San Diego, a couple of years ago now received some grant funding from the Federal Emergency Management Administration, FEMA, to essentially design a resilience hub. And part of that process was to engage with the community to figure out what should a resilience hub look like. And we'll talk a little bit more about resilience hubs in a moment, but just to sort of set the scene, resilience as a term, as an idea, is the ability to withstand disruptions and then return to your normal baseline after that disruption. And so for us, the disruptions that we're talking about are climate hazards like high heat events, power outages, obviously, floods, wildfires, bad air quality, things that are going to disrupt your day-to-day and cause you to seek resources or respite or some other service in your community to help you get through that disruption and then also get back to your normal day-to-day as quickly and as helpfully as possible. And so the city is interested in providing those resources and figuring out where is the best place across our city, or places. Ultimately, we know there will be multiple places where these services would be beneficial. And that is what this grant funding is enabling us to do, to come out to the community, to have this conversation and try to gather input from you all on where would these services be most beneficial and what should these services look like. I think ultimately we would love for resilience hubs to occur across the city in all of the neighborhoods that would benefit from them. The grant funding that we have right now only allows us to bring to 60% design one facility. And so that's really what we're trying to do today is we've narrowed in on 2 potential facilities really just to serve as a pilot as this first sort of initiative around resilience hubs. We'll talk more about those 2 sites in a little bit. Once we narrow in on that facility and gather all of the input from community members on the services and the types of features we would want to have at this facility, we're going to design it to 60%, and then we're going to prepare a follow-on grant application. We're hoping that FEMA will release additional funding for construction, but either way, there are, as Kristen said, there are lots of other funding opportunities out in the community, and so we want to sort of package up a grant application that we can tweak for the different opportunities that present themselves from various funders. So we, again, are going to try to build a resilience hub at the site that we select through this process, but ultimately we would love to develop resilience hubs across the city when funding presents itself. So again, your input is super valuable, and thank you again for being here, and we'll hand it back to Jazz.
Thank you, Lindsay. Any questions about that?
No, that's, thank you. It's very informative.
All right, well, Bree's gonna talk about power outages.
Right, so, I'm gonna just briefly go over, there's basically 2 types of outages. So basically we have, like, why do they occur, right? So we have unplanned and we have planned. So unplanned, as Ken's been talking about, power goes out, you're confused, you're like, what's going on, you call them up. A lot of times that's from traffic accidents, right? Like cars running into poles, when the line goes down, or it can be oftentimes a lot storms and weather. So really high winds or a lot of rain can end up kind of taking equipment out, or unfortunately sometimes it's animal contact. And then for planned, a lot of times that's routine maintenance and repairs, but you'll get a notification of that beforehand, or public safety power shut off. So if there's weather that could lead to a wildfire, there's kind of a whole process around that, but they'll shut power off before that, and kind of like let you know along the way when it's going off, when they'll come back on. And so that's really just for weather that could lead to a wildfire. And then some of the things that we're working on, so I'm part of the climate adaptation team at SDG&E, so we're working on trying to understand how extreme heat, flooding, wildfire, how all of those things are gonna end up affecting our infrastructure and our operations, right? So trying to understand, okay, if it's gonna be hotter, we have to have a You know, when we replace a transformer, making sure that it's rated for a higher temperature, so we're not having to go back in and replace it again in 5-10 years, right? So things like that, trying to get ready for kind of the changes in climate. One of the other things that you probably heard, because I feel like people kind of talk about it, is undergrounding. And so, or, you know, changing out wood poles and making them steel so that they're resistant to fires, or undergrounding. So if you put all the equipment underground, it's really hard for it to fall over when it's storming out. So that's kind of one of the things that is really nice, but the undergrounding especially, I think, costs more. So it's kind of one of those cost benefit of trying to figure out, you know, how do we balance those two? And then lastly, just planning for increased load. Like if people just switch out their gas for electric stoves or electric cars, or you know, people are moving in and out, like trying to understand how that load is going to change. So we're making sure that we're ready for kind of the changes in load. All right, next one. And then I just wanted to briefly cover, so previously SDG&E has an outage map. Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for showing up. So SDG&E has an outage map. Previously it wasn't really useful. It, you know, it had information on there, but it wasn't updated a lot. So recently we just updated kind of that map, so you can, there's a QR code if you want to check it out now, but we'll send out resources afterwards if you want to look at it. But essentially, if you're like, I don't know what's going on, it seems like there's a power outage, you can call SDG&E, or you can go to the outage map. It'll show you the area, it'll show you what circuits affected. It'll show you both on-planned and planned, and then it'll show you kind of estimated time of when it'll come back on. So I just wanted to flag that because it's better now. But yeah, I'll move up to that.
Now, Cassie, speak a little bit about resilience hubs, and what they are, what kind of services they can provide.
Yeah, so what is a resilience hub? So, at its core, a resilience hub should be a facility that is community facing, such as Memorial Rec Center here. It should be a familiar place where, you know, day to day, there's summer camps, people come here, whether your kids or seniors, for families, and they're very familiar with it. It's active site, and as a day-to-day facility, it can provide a place of gathering. So you come here for food, for fun, things like that. And then later on, when there's some climate hazard or an emergency situation, that familiar facility, such as this rec center, can turn into a place of shelter or a place for people to get communication services and help that they need. So these major events that we're looking at are the climate hazards that we talked about before, so heat waves, power outages, flooding, that sort of thing. And people can come here and seek help that they need. So a few core characteristics that make a resilience hub. Firstly is that the resilience hub should be developed in partnership with the community. So that's what we're doing here this week is reaching out to you guys, getting some feedback, and seeing what you guys would like to see at your resilience hub in both day-to-day blue sky scenarios like today, and also in emergency situations as well, when you guys need some help. Second, it should be embedded in the community fabric, known and trusted. So feedback that we've already gotten is that from us, from a city, we can provide the resources, the help, and the insight on what to do to prepare for an emergency or give you supplies. But if you guys don't trust the facility, people aren't going to come out. And so that's the solution that we're trying to fix, is making sure we select a community that is welcoming and you guys feel safe coming here, and having people come here from your local community as well. And lastly, the resilience hub should be equipped, prepared for, and recovered from hazardous events. So we should be able to be having the staff that's trained, the skill set to be able to help you guys in those situations, and also give you some tools to hopefully go back to your day-to-day lives and routines after, say, a power power outages back on, you guys can go return back to your home safely and with anything else that you guys need. So, any questions on what a resilience hub is?
I had a question, is this completely grant money funded?
Yes.
So this is not
This
coming out of
absolutely
any kind of city coffers, budgets or nothing?
Not at the moment, right? The city budget's on an annual basis. So
Right.
for this current fiscal year, we do not have any funding set aside to develop a resilience hub from the general fund.
Mhm.
In future years, you know, depending on whether or not grant funds come through for that development, we may seek funding from the general fund to do it instead.
But
So-
basically, to utilize that money is what, a MOU with the funder in the city?
If a grant were to come through, yeah, we would need to execute a grant agreement and spend it per the terms of that agreement.
Can I piggyback off of his question more for clarification? So it's not funded, it's not budgeted, obviously sustainability is critical, right? Not just saying, oh, let's respond and then everyone forget about it, next disaster start from scratch. So is this resiliency being funded by the CDBG DR federal grant that was given to HCD and then funneled down to the city?
Not this initiative, no. This initiative is being funded through a grant from the Federal Emergency Management Administration, FEMA.
Okay, and so because I think this is great, right? Resiliency Hub is something, Armand and I were from Harvey Family Foundation. Absolutely critical. We've been calling for it for 2.5 years now, so I think this is great. However, I do think it's actually important to ensure that even before we're at a presentation process, that there's more meaningful community input in the development to ensure that the critical vulnerabilities are being touched on. Because when we talk, I know us being on the ground, because we're getting a lot of this right now as they're going through these different federal and state programs,
Yeah.
it goes deeper than just the trusted location is what we're learning, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, for example, I apologize for being late, I just learned about this meeting a few minutes ago and canceled my attempt to come here.
Thank you.
So,
We appreciate it.
I just thought, yes, this is exactly what we've been wanting for quite some time. However, if I'm literally boots on the ground since within an hour of the flood and have a personal connection with well over 500 survivors, and I barely found out about it at 10 a.m., what efforts are being made to ensure that there's meaningful engagement with our most critical and vulnerable communities? Because involving them early on, I believe, will get us to that trust level of having a true community resiliency program that's incorporating them at core from the onset, rather than, and this is the feedback we got from having a session on why aren't you guys applying for these programs for the
Sure.
state?
Yeah.
They're tired of being told what is good for them.
And that is exactly why we're here. We're not trying to tell you, we want your feedback. This is one of those sessions where we want feedback from you on
Okay.
what is it that you need. And you'll see as we work through these slides, this is all about feedback gathering.
Right.
I apologize for the lack of notice that you received
Yeah.
on this meeting. I sincerely wish we had more time. The grant period that we're working under through this FEMA funding is extremely short, and our ability to get the word out on these workshops was limited. I'll be honest. We wish we had more time.
I
The
get
good news
it.
is that we have more time for more feedback gathering. So
Yes.
consider this sort of a first blush, and we want to continue to gather this feedback. You missed the
I did,
quick
sorry.
intro, it's okay. I'll revisit real quick because I think it's important context for you. The grant funding that we have right now allows us to narrow in on one facility, gather input from the community on whether or not we've got that facility right, if we've selected the right one, that we've done a criteria analysis, we'll walk through that in a little bit. We've landed on 2, we're gonna get your feedback on which of the 2 is the best fit for today's initiative. And then gather some input on what types of features and services would be best for this particular Resilience Hub facility. And then the grant funding allows us to design to 60% the facility, the retrofits, whatever might be necessary, the energy backup, the solar and battery storage, and any other programming. And then the funding also allows us to develop a follow-on grant application that would allow us to complete design and then actually build the facility and start to build out that programming. We anticipate that the follow-on grant application is going to allow for additional input and additional sort of manipulation of the design and the services, right? So this is not a one and done engagement opportunity from our perspective. We want your ongoing feedback, and if and when we get that follow-on funding, we will be back to make sure that we're incorporating more feedback and, you know, dialing it in so that we're providing meaningful resources and something that the community can actually take advantage of and wants to take advantage of. So again, apologies for the lack of notice. We're really, really glad you're here today. It sounds like we've got the right folks in the room, so really looking forward to your input.
I definitely think this is great to have in our community. I just gotta throw this out there because you gotta understand who you're dealing with when you come out here and engage us. We've been giving our opinions for decades to deaf ears. So we see this as an opportunity to get information from y'all more than expecting y'all to do something for us. I'll just be honest with you.
That's fair. And I may not have all the information you are seeking. I'm a lowly program manager in the Department of General Services, but I will do our best.
Yeah, because the city's always coming to us, you know, but they don't listen to us and they do what they don't do anyway.
That's a very good point, right? Is typically we're
In
the
our
ones
neighborhood.
they'll come to when shit hits the fan and it's time to figure out solutions. But it's been 2.5 years saying, here is all of the hard data. These are the most critically hit, most vulnerable communities. These are where the critical gaps are, where there was lack of infrastructure, there was no physical facilities, there was no means for us to move over 1,000 individuals that we were hoarding into shuttles to go into county jurisdiction. So it's painful when you see the same facility saying, well, they already have that location. We built them that facility a few decades ago. That's where all of you have to go deal with it, figure it out. We'll get some funding. We'll take our admin fee and you'll get what you get at what exists. What we're kind of calling for now is to look at where the gaps, the critical vulnerabilities are,
Okay.
to bring us all together the way it would be done in
The
where
rich,
I come
rich
from.
neighborhoods.
The private sector, I come from the private sector, I'm not from this sector. I have my own cybersecurity firm. After a major incident, we bring all the key stakeholders into one room, into one table, county, city, CVOs, everyone, right? And we do a true, meaningful, maybe a painful one, but that after action report is absolutely critical. Not everybody run off and give each other pats on the backs on what we all did good, but let's all roll up our sleeves, not look at only the response, but now let's do the real work. Let's document the lessons learned. Let's move through and see where we need to add all the absolutely necessary layers to mitigate a number of these risks and vulnerabilities that are certainly able to be mitigated. And let's start there. Because I think we keep doing it backwards, and each time there's another disaster, our community is more and more and more depleted, where if there was a little bit of a collaborative effort at the forefront, we could tackle it based on criticality versus take what you get and then we'll figure it out when there's more funding. Because that's our interest, is to ensure we have no more to give. I wiped out my life savings, he wiped out his, like we have no more to give, not as the foundation, as individuals, as community members. So our interest is so deep to ensure that there's a sustainable response plan moving forward, so that as a community, there might be a little bit of federal funding which has its own limitations, and trust me, sometimes it's not even worth what they give. We know that, but there is a way to make it sustainable and ongoing, so that the community it just needs that light to propel, to keep going, not to keep being force-fed what we don't want to eat, if that makes sense.
It does. It makes complete sense.
The big elephant in the room is the mismanaged fiscally of the budget, of the revenues, of the, that's not on the community. But we cannot ignore that talking about this right now, because it's affecting everything y'all want to do. It's affecting everything we would like done, because none of us in here could deal with that elephant. It's messing up everything. It's giving us less services and costing us more. All you guys are doing here is raising our fees in this region. We have the highest of everything across the nation. So understand who you're talking to right now. We not stupid. And I'm not stupid, I'm very engaged, and I can tell that you ladies care. I could feel it. So, but you know, you have bosses, you have superiors. So, but I have much respect for what you guys is trying to do in our community right now.
You know, Lindsay, if I may, everything you all shared here today, the city is planning to include that in the grant application, so, I don't think it's not gonna go anywhere, and it's important that you share things, what's your name again?
Clarissa.
Clarissa, you're talking about like the coordination, like that's an important thing that's gonna be part of the program, you know, so things like that are also, we wanna hear that too, and for you to tell us what's important to you.
Thank you.
So yeah, I guess that goes to the next, you know, what Resilience Hub can provide, you know, I think that's like our next topic that we kind of transitioned into. So this is just a broad range of services that, you know, we believe that as Resilience Hub can provide, but obviously, you know, we'd love your feedback and decide if we want to incorporate those services and the help that you guys need. So these services not only are for, you know, day-to-day normal conditions, but also during emergencies. So day-to-day, your rec center can be a place of gathering, cool air, access to power, running water. Like these are things that you can come anytime to any city facility and get those services. However, when kind of like a heat wave, let's say a heat wave, but the power's still on, or the power's out at home, any of those situations, floods, then you can go and seek shelter and extra help at these resilience hubs, you know, that we're hoping to incorporate and have access to some of the things that you need. So like Wi-Fi, refrigeration, you know, we have a lot of residents in our communities that need and rely on power for their equipment and CPAP machines, oxygen tanks. We've heard a lot of great feedback from you guys in our communities that those are some really important aspects to really think about. So we're definitely considering those for our resilience hub. So looking at this list, you know, start thinking about what you guys need day to day, and it can be really fun things too, like programming. So like gardening, like sustainable activities, like these are things we'd love to include in our resilience hub. And then also thinking about when emergency kicks in and you need that extra help, what are some things that you need from us as a city to provide for you guys. So start thinking about that. We'll go through questions and get your insight and your answers on those. Did you have a question?
It was a question you're probably gonna answer. I'm not gonna stop you.
We'll go through this services.
So you've kind of heard what kind of services a resilience hub can provide, programming. So we wanted to get your input on different scenarios. So thinking about a normal day, as Kathy was saying, a blue sky day, what kind of services or programming would be beneficial for the community? It can be the things that we showed on the list, and it can also be things outside of that list. So we want to hear from you. I'll be taking some notes. Bruce is over here taking notes. So really anything you can think of.
As they pertain to, just so I understand, because I kind of came in late, as they pertain to a rec center, as it pertains to a separate infrastructure, what is the?
The resilience hubs would be built at community centers or rec centers, so these places people normally come to. So it's kind of like a multi-function center.
The way this, sorry, just for more context, the way this grant application was written, that we're implementing right now is the city would select a facility that we own and operate and have control over, right? So that we can go in and make the retrofits necessary to turn it into a resilience hub. So that's the kind of the framework that we're working on. And we have narrowed through some criteria analysis, narrowed in on 2 specific sites. We're gonna talk about those and get your feedback on them. If I can anticipate kind of maybe what the feedback that, or the discussions that are happening in the community, these may not be the best locations for it, right? There may be other locations out there in the community that are ideal for resilience hubs. We get that, we would love to support those as well. We just don't have control over them because they are not our facilities. So this initiative really focuses on what we have control over, and so that's kind of where that's sort of the context for this conversation.
Is it being piloted in minority neighborhoods on purpose, or is it other examples done elsewhere as far as resilient hubs?
There are lots of resilient hubs examples across the nation.
No,
For us-
in our city
For
and
us in
region.
San Diego, through our criteria analysis, we did land on 2 facilities that are in low-income areas, this being one of them, and then Mountain View is the other one.
And that's
No,
what we
no, I
figured.
meant, do we have any others anywhere else?
The only one that I am aware of is currently being constructed, and it's down in South Bay, and it's being constructed by Casa Familiar.
City? The city?
Not a city facility.
No, they're a
This would-
nonprofit or.
Right, so we don't have any.
The city does not.
Okay, that's all I need, So this is new.
This would be the pilot.
Thank you for coming to our considering minority neighborhoods. Thank you
It was a
for
very
finding
part
it.
of the process.
And that's typically criteria on the funding too, so that's, good, that.
So this location and Mountain View are the 2 potential sites?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Off the
And
top,
that's what, it makes sense, and based on everything you explained, that makes sense. And I think, but for us, we caution that, right, in the sense of, during the floods, we took over Jackie Robinson YMCA. That was one of the only facilities that community has. They finally got something decent, and it was embedded within their everyday life. And we took it over and took it away from them. And so, caution on the, taking the little bit that these communities have
Yeah.
to purpose it for 20 things.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, you were seeing people at the worst during those initial days, and it wasn't safe to have what should have been a safe space for children
Yeah.
on top of people that just went through something as traumatic as that. Because it brings out the scary sometimes, right? And it wasn't a week, it was 2 years later, we're still taking over their space.
So when
So-
you say it was taken away from them, you mean it was transitioned from a space that was safe for children to something that became a disaster response?
It became the hub for a critical disaster,
That's great feedback.
right? And so it was extreme, the energy was not there, there was predators in a number of different ways. Because whenever there's a crisis, trust me, the bad actors come out way before the people that intend to do good. And the vast majority of these saviors have ulterior motives, and we learned that. So it was kind of uneasy sometimes knowing, and again, very thankful for the leadership at Jackie Robinson bending over backwards to try to help and accommodate. But at the same time, it was at the cost of something else that, again, is one of the only things that community has. So this is great. I do believe for when we're talking about that ongoing, resiliency is all the way around. We always talk about it includes sports equity. It includes ensuring that people know how to submit an application. People know how to do it. We saw it firsthand when I had to hold a workshop of all the folks that didn't know how to read. And their case managers kept sending them things in different languages, like that was gonna somehow bless them with the ability to read, right? And so there's a number of ways that when we talk about resiliency, it's preparation, it's ensuring that we are boosting the community up as a whole, but
Not taking away.
Before the disaster.
yes, right? And it's that everyday, year round, but there should be there's critical vulnerabilities, and there has to be investment in infrastructure that will withstand not only that response, but the long-term recovery. Because what we saw during this disaster was grossly inequitable. The city and the county allegedly funneled $110 million of their own budgets and reserves into this response. Where's that funding? It didn't stay in the community. It was all these outside disaster recovery orgs that came in, paid themselves 6 figures, ate it all up, and we watched the truckloads of all of the donations and the building material. We witnessed the truckloads get packed up and driven up to LA Fires that we did the fundraising for, that we were issued tax items on tens of thousands of donations, but the city and the county said, we can't help you, there's no infrastructure. Go call these outside orgs that just got $3 million from FEMA, but they've been in LA and Hawaii and every other disaster for the last 6 months that they're all earning 6 figures. They haven't even physically been here, right? And the second the fires happened, tens of thousands of dollars that were sitting in a county-owned facility went right up to LA so that they can grab their next contract. So for 2 years, our community suffered. And who was in charge of data? The same vendors that were getting all of the funding. So what about segregation of duties? What about addressing the conflicts of interest? What about a leadership council that has full oversight on all operations so that there's a clear understanding of who's doing what and where the money is going? That is what was missing, and I do not feel that there's any means of making progress or resiliency until we get to the root of what went wrong first and foremost. And that's where the issue lies. Until we get in a room and we address all of that and resolve the issues, we would spend a quarter of this and have some true progress. If that could get done first, you can't keep brushing it under the rug.
Yeah, well, I think I totally agree with your comment, and I'll piggyback in the sense that our system here in San Diego, we have a strong mayor system here. And for a lot of us here in San Diego, we feel we need to go back to that city manager, okay? Because then you have sound competence, CEO structure, or board structure, where you don't have one person with all the power to choose who is around him to advise him. And you don't put a bunch of minions around you who aren't qualified. Okay, a city manager and the board has a responsibility to make sound assessments, what they call it, when they assess EIRs and things like that discretion. Okay, now I don't know how we got here, but now we're to the point where developers only have to pay impact fees to bypass rules and guidelines of CEQA that protect communities. So they pay this fee, skirt, you can go around and do whatever. Close to a trolley or a bus hub, you can do whatever over there. Okay? So we got all this coming at us, and then you guys come, you want to get, and this is great. It's great, but we are being abused. And so I wouldn't get in the way of none of this that y'all trying to do, but we definitely you need to make the right call where you put it, because off the top, I would have to say Mountain View is a bad spot. I mean, there's nothing there. It's too small. And there's no parking, there's no way to get in. One-way situations and things right there, that don't make no sense. This right here is open, bigger, can handle more volume of emergencies. It's a no-brainer for me with my experience in public works, and roads, county.
I got a question. So the rec centers of Memorial and Mountain View are the only two locations that you guys decided, or is there any other options? The reason why I asked that is going back to the floods is, like I said, the first thing before we even got Jackie Robinson, I coach at Lincoln High School. So the principals over there were fortunate enough to allow us to utilize Lincoln as the first hub when the floods first hit. So we took over the gyms, we took over the bathrooms, we took over the locker rooms. So the kids weren't even able to use the gyms, the locker rooms, any of that kind of stuff, right? For a while before we were able to even get the Jackie Robinson YMCA. Once we got that, we took over the YMCA for 3 to 6 months, and then still, even for 2 years, utilizing a lot of the meeting rooms and all that different kind of stuff. But sports and all that other stuff were locked down, and families weren't able to utilize the YMCA due to the fact that we had, we were utilizing that. So, not wanting to repeat that, I don't like the idea of using the rec centers when disasters hit, because the next one is going to be way worse than the last one, because we aren't utilizing the ability for lessons learned, right? So taking over a rec center will then take away the opportunity for a lot of these kids to be able to play their sports, to be able to come here and do homework, do tutoring, doing all that different kind of stuff. And I feel bad for those who weren't affected by it. Now, those who were, now it's doubled up, because those that were affected by it, right, obviously are going through the trauma, and those that weren't affected by it, now you're causing harm and trauma to the community who didn't. So now you're doubling up on the trauma of those that were affected by the flood, even though they weren't personally affected by whatever disaster it was. Now they're affected by their safe space. You know, a lot of people use this as daycare and all that different kind of stuff. So I was just wondering if with those types of lessons that we've put out there since day one of what we need in our community, were there any options on the table of not utilizing rec centers?
Libraries were the other city-owned facilities that we have been considering. They already serve as cooling zones. And starting with big picture, we were looking at 60 different city facilities around the city, mostly libraries and rec centers, because they are part of that cool zone network already.
Yeah.
We narrowed in on these two facilities, and the reason we landed on rec centers versus libraries is space. There's just a lot more space from a gymnasium and locker room and facility on-site services opportunity at rec centers versus libraries. So when we think about the facilities that are community facing, that again, that the city owns and has purview over and has control over how we operate, rec centers is kind of where we landed. I hear what you're saying though. I mean, it makes complete sense.
And it's more so because we had to scramble and figure out while we were doing the flood, our parents needed help, and our kids were, they were literally going crazy from cabin fever, being crammed into these disgusting hotels that were drug dens. You know, and they were really bad. So we kind of had to figure out how to do a summer youth program in the middle of recovery, just to get them 5 weeks of daycare and give them a field trip, get them outside to use, you know, like just burn some steam because they had nowhere to go. So again, where did we go? We tapped right back into, so Jackie Robinson was depleted. You know, we were working with ECC on trying to do a classroom setting and then have field trips walking them to Jackie Robinson. It was just too complicated and there was too many needs. So that's where, you know, again, 2.5 years ago, we had meetings with the city and the county saying, this is the big lesson learned. This is the big critical vulnerability. We would like to be able to start having that input. These were the areas that were hit with over 6 feet. This is the most densely populated areas hit. These were the areas that had nowhere to go within a 5-mile radius.
Wow.
And that's where we would like to prioritize.
When you say this, you mean the Memorial versus Mountain View?
No, I'm talking about areas like Southcrest and Shelltown that were the hardest hit. They had the highest number of water. They had no CBO presence whatsoever. And so we have yet to do a thorough walkthrough to talk about, okay, Harvey Family Foundation and a number of other CBOs that were based out of, say, for example, Mountain View South 42nd. Did anyone interview those survivors on that cul-de-sac? Because if you had, you would know that the feedback I got, because I interviewed everyone, because I had nothing to do with Harvey Family Foundation. To the contrary, I was trying to keep an eye on all the nonprofits to ensure that they were acting right. And the first thing that every single one of them said, we were treated like kings and queens. We felt safe. They gave us breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They protected us. We had never felt safer. So it was very easy to mobilize and organize them and get them in the hotels and everything else. But if you look at other areas, there was no CBO presence, there was no facilities, there was no infrastructure, so they were riddled with predators. Investors, contractors, I mean, everything you could think of flooded those blocks. And so it was very drastic, the difference, right? And so the support and the assistance, even at Mountain View, it was grossly inequitable. Why? Because within 24 hours, you had communities, and that's the way it should be. You have to celebrate the fact that people literally experienced the worst moments of their life and said we were treated like kings and queens. That deserves to be celebrated. But why? Not even a mile and a half away was their single moms, 12 days after the flood, sleeping in a cold, wet, moldy car with their small 3 and 4, 5-year-old children. 12 days later. It was grossly inequitable. And those are the type of gaps that we talk about because they didn't know where to go. They had nowhere to go. They were told to go to Southcrest. There was nothing there for them. Then they were told no, because of political opinions or beef amongst individuals, they were shuttled to Spring Valley. And what were they given after they got on shuttles? And I encouraged them to all go. They were given a box with rice and beans. Their homes were flooded. How were they supposed to cook rice and beans? And that's all they got. They were shuttled out to Spring Valley. They were given a box with rice and beans and then sent back. It was the city apparently and the county that, from what I understand, there was beef or issues. Again, it shouldn't be political. This is 100% operational. And that's where I think the critical concerns are is this is operational. I had many discussions with the COO at the time to stress and emphasize on the fact that emergency management has nothing to do with politics whatsoever.
So it was the county who was doing the shuttling out there because the city and the county, because of their beef, weren't allowing the county to utilize Southcrest and Mountain View as a hub for the county. So they had to force the families to shuttle into a county facility, which was in Spring Valley at the Spring Valley Library, right, which was a county facility, because they wouldn't allow the county, jurisdiction, whatever the situation was, wouldn't allow the county to set up.
And when you're dealing with a lack of resources, right, and it's very limited, it's not fair. It's not fair. Why? Because I started having to fill my car and take trips up to Mountain View. And you know what I found? The vast majority of the people in line were not even impacted by the flood.
At all.
And that's not fair. That I had families for 2 weeks that we were feeding them whatever we could find, and they were sleeping on the floor. They were racking up their credit cards. But you drive across town and the line is filled and there's booths and everything. And I'm like, I know what block you live on. You weren't flooded. Get out of line, get out of line, get out of line. That's not right. But if the facilities were in locations that are the most vulnerable, that wouldn't have occurred. So these are all the examples, again, that it's been 2.5 years of us trying to sit with everyone in a room and say, these are the things we got to address and resolve. Because how many millions were blown on just not having a simple process, right? Because you dumped it on the CBOs to figure it out, but how effective and efficient would it have been if the city had worked with us? They had incorporated an immediate, again, I gave them the plan 1,000,000 times. Why didn't you contract 211? Why didn't you have everyone call and get issued a number? So that by the time they got to the Jackie Robinson, they're cleared and vetted, their block was flooded or not.
Well, honestly,
There was processes that were ignored, and that's where I'd like to get it fixed now.
honestly, there has to be a emergency response plan, and it's always updated. And so the last one that the city was signed off on should have language that speaks to this. It's not like this is some kind of new disasters happen. So apparently the plan was not followed or failed. Go back to that plan, dissect it, make it public, your determinations, evaluations of that plan, and make it public. The problem that the city has is transparency. We be having to dang near sue to get information from y'all sometimes. Just be honest here, since y'all want our feedback. We fight y'all. Citizens have to fight our own legislators and our own city departments when it comes to getting services. We have way better things to do with our time than make up lies about y'all and how y'all treat us.
Thank you all. Sounds like using resources for investing in the community and making sure people are prepared, and that coordination piece is, if not more important than the services the centers are providing themselves. So
Sounds like at the very least, a foundational piece of the puzzle, right? Yes.
And thank you so much for, the perspectives on how a resilience hub can impact a community space. And that did come up yesterday in the other meetings as well.
Yeah.
Making sure that, folks have activities for kids and people, ways to deal with stress, because these events can really impact people and kind of bring out some challenging behaviors with folks. So making sure there's resources to invest in people in that way too.
Can you tell me why, perhaps, for example, Southcrest wasn't considered? There's only Logan and Mountain View?
I would have to go back to our analysis.
Come on,
Cause that's a
talking about
sticky
4-5?
topic right there,
Talking
right?
about
From
4-5?
no, South Crest Park. And so, you know,
Oh,
that's
it's
a,
baseball.
why? Because
Yeah.
that's where everybody ran.
That's where all the
They all
flooding
ran
was.
there and they were turned
Yeah,
away.
flooding was there,
They
huh?
had nowhere to go. If there was anywhere to, at minimum, that immediate presence, that was the closest facility to the flood area,
Yeah, you're right, it
right? And
was.
so, to me, I'm confused why we're not looking at the most critical vulnerability.
I
Was that
don't-
facility itself compromised by the flood?
No.
That's what I was gonna say.
I think it
No,
was.
because that's where all the
wasn't it?
volunteers and the
What?
elected leaders and
The
the
channel
labor
go right
unions
through
all
there. The street
posted up
got
to do
flooded.
their photo
Yeah,
ops
the
within
houses,
24
yeah.
hours of the flood.
Part of our analysis looked at floodplains and, 100-year floods.
Right.
And what facilities might be impacted. We want a facility that's not gonna be impacted by.
And
a
that does
certain
make
flood.
sense,
That was
right?
low
And
lying
that's why
right in there,
about
yeah.
2 years ago, we had literally begged the city and the county to consider a location, right? It was the highest point physically in the entire region. The building was for sale at a cost of 1.3 million. I personally negotiated it all the way down to $750,000 to purchase a building that would have been absolutely perfect. And it was in the highest point in that neighborhood. It had already passed all environmental. It was ideal, and it was grandfathered in for mixed use. You could do affordable housing above, whatever, and nobody listened, right? And so that's kind of where I think it's important that we not only look at, well, this is all we have. Well, one, that flood was a 100-year flood,
Right,
and South Crest Park didn't flood,
right.
right? And we know that why? Because the photo ops occurred there within a few hours after the flood, right? So it didn't flood last time, potentially wouldn't this time, but there was also other areas for room to consider actual investments, taking into account all the criteria that we were looking at, because that's one of the things we were trying to get done. Unfortunately, the deal that I negotiated, a private company came in and got the facility. And that's the part that's frustrating, is that we kind of want to also ensure that we're not just saying this is all we got, but also looking at where the most critical needs are. Because I support all the, South 42nd got hit really hard. Not only that, but when we're looking at outside of a flood, that's where all of the elders are. There's a number of elderly people that live alone that we are still having to go visit often to help and protect because of the ongoing predatory
That was what I wanted to
practices.
mention.
So South 42nd is, Mountain View does support a significant amount of elders
Right.
that would need help outside of, say, for perhaps flood.
I
As
think
is
that
this
should be-
neighborhood. There's a number of elders that are in the Logan neighborhood. But let's not forget about a huge group, a demographic that continuously is forgotten, that is also still probably one of, in my opinion, one of the most vulnerable groups in the county wide.
Yeah, and the senior piece, the hub should be 100%, the, what do you call it? Epicenter of where they go out to check on seniors from this hub. You know, because we gotta care about the seniors in an emergency. Somebody, and if the hub ain't thinking about them, who thinking about them?
Yeah.
Everybody ain't got nobody, the kids to come help them. Yeah, this is great. I mean, to have the conversation, but we sure would like to see results.
Absolutely.
Question: who would be running?
Mhm.
Who would be running these hubs?
Great question, and we would love your feedback. Who do you think should be running these hubs?
Well, I mean, if you're actually going to invest in hubs and things, we think you definitely need to partner with the trusted CBOs that are within the community, those that have even before a disaster hits, because there's a lot of organizations that when the flood hit popped up out of nowhere. It's like, where have you been all year long, right?
Right.
So being able to actually invest in CBOs to make sure that they have the proper training to be able to run these hubs here in the community, right? They're already trusted, the community already knows them, but
MOU 'em.
well, yeah, of course, that's gonna have to happen, but just making sure that you're investing in them all year long and having them prepared So then that way they can go out in the community, they have the research, they give them the resource and trust it. That was one of the reasons why we were able to just go knock on doors, because they knew who we were.
But we didn't get the funding, we didn't get
But
the
we didn't get
support.
the-
And I
exactly.
think that's what's important too, is to stress, there was larger orgs that had multi-million-dollar budgets, and they had infrastructure, and they chose not to help. They
So
got those
smaller-
initial hundreds of thousands and supposedly helped, and then said we have to go back to our programs.
So focusing on those really.
And there's, exactly, and so I think that's where the concern a lot of the times was, the orgs that were being called on to help, they couldn't comply with actually managing a grant.
Right,
They were not in compliance with the district attorney's annual filings.
right.
They didn't know that they had to have workers' comp or GLI. That, you know, these are the orgs that the community members knew, and that trust was there, but they were never gonna be able until we came together and was like, okay, let's show them, you know, and again, it took us having to get it together quickly, but at what cost? And so I think that's where resiliency is not only, you know, having these things, but also looking at all of the areas that went wrong and where we need to shore up and have folks be more prepared. In my opinion, it was not sustainable. I typically wear 20 hats, so I was able to figure it out. An everyday human being is not gonna be able to administer a program and take calls and do house visits and manage a state program, a federal program, answer the housing commission every week and do everything else. It was humanly impossible.
I wanted to ask you, talk about making sure people are prepared. What
Yeah.
kind of like programs would you envision?
So for when it comes to CBOs and organizations, all of the examples I just gave, they did not have the capacity, they didn't have access to the funding, they were not getting the support on the business side. I mean, I can go on and send you guys a lot of lists, but those are just examples of, the exact examples of, to answer your question. On the community side, it's the same thing. Again, everything that they went through, and I think it goes not only for actual survivors, city staff, county staff, elected leaders, right? Because there was a lot of talks and there was a lot of decisions made, and nobody was qualified to be making those decisions, quite frankly. There was decisions being made around how to treat the landlords. Nobody even realized when they were making these decisions that it was about to backfire in everyone's face because landlords were not eligible for FEMA. So you had elected leaders saying, well, what do you want me to do? Apply for FEMA. So again, it was just escalated and escalated and escalated, because I do think there's a lot of room for education and growth. When we talk about resiliency and preparation, it's at every level, because a lot of the times, finally being dragged into the room after being the one on the ground but not included in the table for quite some time, once you come into the table, it was like, holy shit, no wonder everything is going wrong.
You don't know what they're doing up in there.
And that's because there was disconnect between the table and the ground, right? And the table was consulting orgs that they themselves had spent not even a day on the ground.
Wow.
So that council, I think, is absolutely critical, because when you want to talk about what preparation and what true resiliency looks like, those are all things I believe will be organically developed throughout that process.
Yeah, I think there's a systemic pattern of failed leadership. You can't blame it on the troops. The troops are following orders, okay? And the failed leadership is in the arena of the people, policymakers, are not getting the accurate data to them because of, I ain't gonna say corrupt policies, but enacted policies that allow data to be suppressed to push the project through, okay? And when you have that happen, when you have that type of systemic ideology operating through a city council, this is what you get. Now, if you don't change that, how you gonna expect any change? Our comments don't mean nothing when you're dealing with that type of opposition. Because here we have a scenario, I mean, let's just broaden it out right now. This is a promise zone. What does that mean? means it's federally designated. They had to lobby to get that designation. And I believe Mayor Todd Gloria voted, he was a council member at the time, to get this designation to our region, which has been grossly served in infrastructure upgrades and neglect of annual services to our storm drain channels and things. It was a series of failed leadership. It wasn't just a 100-year storm. They're not getting off that easy. I'm sorry. I did the job, okay? That was the job I did. Equipment operator for the county of San Diego, responsible for keeping the water flowing on the roads and the water flowing into the storm drains and channels. And that was, the city had the responsibility just like the county, okay, when it comes to that. The county had way bigger budget. We had way more better equipment, way more, equipment to deal with the maintenance of our channels in the backcountry, because we're covering more area, okay? And we looked at the city as inferior to us because they just don't have the budget and the means, okay? So when I come into arenas like this and talk to city employees who are just trying to do their job, I'm looking at you from a different perspective, okay? Because I understand what you're up against, right? And so I'm giving my answers, trust me, it's vetted through some years of experience dealing with this type of thing. When it comes to emergency response, that's when I'm out and doing my job. Everybody else sleeping. I'm out there, down the Otay Lakes Road trying to unplug a culvert and I'm getting sucked into the lake, 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so I understand emergency responses more than the average person, okay? And so I'm 100% behind this. It just needs to be effective and you gotta care about what the people are saying and the leadership has to care. Right now, they're doing things with this impact fee, which allows developers to bypass harms brought to neighborhoods. And right now, it's been 4 years of ushering through permits based on paid impact reports which dismiss the data of the impact. They're allowing right now, the way it's going down, they're allowing developers to bypass CEQA requirements by allowing them to make amendments, addendums to old EIRs that don't have anything to do with the new developments that are coming in. They're not talking about those harms. They create rules, allow them to use the old EIR and just push through all these harmful projects.
Are
And
we
these
still
harmful.
talking about resiliency? I'm sorry.
I'm talking, look, in infrastructure.
Got you. Okay. I just want to keep up. I'm
Yeah,
trying to keep
I
up.
already spoke on it
Got
before you
you.
were here.
Sorry.
My background is in that.
Got you.
Emergency response,
Okay.
flooding, erosion control, mitigation of vegetation that's grown up, that's clogging the Choice Valley Creek right now. Just had a fire down there. If it was maintained, there would have been no fire down there. It's just a compounding of leadership ideology, which has got the city in a quagmire to where they can't even do an adequate response because of all the little fires they have in services.
Well, thank you, Penny, for sharing, and we've heard it, that leadership and making sure leadership is active and engaged and listening and coordinated is really key to transparency.
And not dismissive.
And I did want to make sure that Kristen had some opportunity to share as well. If you
Well,
have any
I'm
thoughts.
looking forward to being part of the solution. There's a lot of problems, a lot of things going on. We can't solve all of those today in one session, so, I appreciate there's a lot of things that need to be done for emergency response and coordination and the right organizations in place to respond. I
certainly understand that. But I think part of the goal here today is to work on readying a facility so that everything's in place, at least start that process. I didn't realize that the city didn't have technically any resilient hubs yet. I thought,
We have shelters, and we have cool zones.
yeah, I thought they were further along than that. So, just to be part of the solution, how do we prepare? How do we potentially get this facility ready? What does it need?
Right.
So, it's warm in here right now.
And
Is this
exactly.
situation?
And
Is this
very
the
well.
center?
Yeah.
And that's a good point you make, and, you know, this scenario on the screen here, and wanna kind of bring us back is like, the Resilience Hub is about emergencies, but it's also on these day-to-day, regular days where it's really hot, you know, and maybe your power goes off, or, you know, you don't have electricity at home, so in those kind of situations, how can these hubs also serve you?
Have
That makes sense?
have a,
I just think that it shouldn't be D4 or D8. It's always D4 or D8, and that's kind of why Armand and I
Yeah.
came together, because
And we
it shouldn't be one or the other.
we're
We
listening
should,
on the location, yeah.
you know, and so when we were looking at these locations, both of these have elders that need AC. Is this the solution to the big one that we should all be preparing for years now? Perhaps not, but it's a good start, and if the funding is here, it should be invested. But I don't believe it should be one at the cost of the other, because they both need it.
Let's
Yeah,
hope this is
time
the
limits,
first of
right?
many.
Right, and I
You
mean,
know,
if
but you
this
gotta
is,
start
this is this is what we have to deal with right now. One, we're looking at rec centers. Two, there's 2 facilities, and 3, yes, these are the most vulnerable, some of the most vulnerable neighborhoods, and they could use AC, they could use that, so I don't wanna discount that, but I also don't think it should be a discussion of one or the other.
you
Because
said
that's
time
where
limit,
the
right?
struggle is. It should always, what we've learned, whatever you offer one side, you should be offering the other. And that's what we have learned, because that's how you're gonna build trust and have community collaboration. I think that's how we were able to break through a lot of these trust barriers, was ensuring that it's all or nothing. We bring them all in, help everyone, not one community.
So the other purpose of these meetings is not just to select a location.
Right.
It's to hear about the services and the programming.
Yeah.
So the intention, the city would like to do more. So if there's opportunity to pursue more resilience hubs, what kind of services and programming could be at those resilience hubs too? So not just thinking about location.
Yeah, because I know that, like you guys said, you're considering or trying to see which one. I would kind of consider how to match those dollars. Look at philanthropic efforts, look at other funding sources to ensure that you're not just touching at one, but
Well,
Just the first of
isn't
many.
there isn't there a time limit on the submission of the,
Our current grant runs through the end of the year,
oh, okay,
and
that's the
then we're
time.
hoping that the federal administration, that FEMA opens up the opportunity for follow-on funding to get money to construct. We don't know if they will. We will absolutely be hoping to repackage that grant application for whatever funding opportunities present themselves, and ideally going after multiple so that we can serve multiple communities and not be limited just to one. First of many, like Kristen is saying.
So how do you determine which district gets it first?
That's part of the discussion we're wanting to hear from.
because that first of many is where you lose a big group,
I know.
right? And that's where I'm just cautioning, because that's where
It's
we've been in
difficult.
that scenario before. We've been given the order, the directive, choose this or that,
Yeah.
and we've dealt with the repercussions. So just cautioning that it's, even though it's genuine to say, this will be the first of many, just wait your turn, you'll be next.
Yeah.
Sometimes that alone is where you lose them. And that's what we
It's
learned.
always we're next. Well, why we have to be next?
And that's where you end up losing that trust in future collaborative efforts.
I don't
Just cautioning
understand.
that.
Get it.
I don't understand why the county and city is not collaborating on this.
Well, if these are
The-
city-owned
the
facilities,
hub-
I
I'm
don't think
talking about the
county's
hub concept.
And maybe we will.
Because when the emergency response is together.
There's a potential scenario here where we gather this feedback that you're sharing with us today, and instead, or in addition to designing 60% one facility, we also submit and prepare and work with you all to prepare a grant application to develop this oversight committee, right? That includes the county, that includes the city, that includes the right community organizations.
Emergency response should be collectively dealt with. it shouldn't be no segregation of services. It should be a collaboration, it should be a joint effort, and the people want that.
Yes, sir.
We don't want y'all separating and just spatting over us. You help us right now.
Do you have any
That's
information
ridiculous.
that you can share on the data that was looked at for likelihood of the type of event, the type of hazard, the population in that area, the floodplain?
We don't have that ready to share today, but we do have that analysis.
Okay,
Yeah,
that'd
we're
be
wrapping that up right
interesting
now.
to see, 'cause I could see you would need different facilities for earthquake response, different facility,
Mhm.
different location
Wildfire.
for
Mhm.
wildfire response.
Collaborate, kinda got a lot of space.
Have a facility that's in the heart of the wildfire.
Right.
That's at risk, you have to move those people outside of wildfire danger. So there's a lot to consider, there's a lot of factors there, I don't think it's an easy decision to land on one.
And there's always gonna be trade-offs, right? There's always gonna be a negative ramification of selecting one versus others, and, yeah.
What about that wellness center they built?
And it's also that system redundancy, right? Because no one can foresee the future. No one knows what facility is going to crumble when the
Jacob City.
earthquake occurs.
Where
Right?
the disaster's
You don't
going.
know where. You can always, the purpose is to try to be as best prepared as possible. But, true system redundancy, ensures that you're looking at the potential of everything. You have to diversify to mitigate those vulnerabilities because you never know which facility could crumble. Could be the one you just funneled 100 million into. You don't know, right? And then you're gonna turn around and depend on those dilapidated buildings that have always been there and been the tried and true, resources. So that's where, because again, I don't wanna take up too much more time, but I do feel that, again, when we look at these things, capital stack, right? There's $12 million that the city and the county got, $6 million each, under this disaster recovery grant, that the HCD is distributing. That's 12 million the city's getting, 16 million the county's getting. Half of it goes into, which is a drop in the bucket and nowhere near enough what's needed for infrastructure, stormwater repairs, etc. But that other half, that other 6 million, is specifically for community resiliency planning, mitigation, resiliency hubs, etc. So that's $6 million that was going to be given to the city in January of this year for the specific core purpose of DR 4758, January 2024 floods. I've never heard anything. Don't know how that money is being allocated. I certainly wouldn't want to get a last minute invite to be told this is what we're doing with it without having these discussions, because that's potential to expand. If you guys have this funding, what about that other 6 million that's just
Good question.
nobody knows about it?
I intend to find out.
But I do, right? The action plan was very clear. The city applied for and received, was approved, and it's in the approved action plan, $6 million for resiliency planning, mitigation, community engagement, all of that, including resiliency hubs. That is the critical vulnerability. So why isn't at least 1 million of that 6 million being put towards true resiliency hubs? 1. 2, the county got their half. Where are they at? Why are they not putting some of their 6 million towards that same critical vulnerability? Because we all can agree, it is a vulnerability, it's critical, and it needs to go. And this is from the January 2024 floods funding, so why isn't it not being reinvested into the communities that were impacted by that?
Yeah.
And I do feel that you guys would be able to expand even further along with this if people would work together and match the dollars that they've already received.
Yes.
So that's the only thing I wanted to stress, because I absolutely support this. I think it's critical, but I do feel that there's a lot more that could be done, and it could be done far more effectively if we kind of just
Great point.
acted right. That's all.
I'll be researching that. when I
Thank
get back to
you.
the office. Thank you.
Yes, and if you can get my email, I
I'd
can
love to do
forward
that.
you. I have all of the information regarding
They
those.
came
There
together
was
for the arts.
and that's another thing that when I talk about this council, when they rolled out and announced that action plan for a year, I kept calling the city and the county. Who has lead? Who has lead on this? We're about to get screwed over. Who has
What
lead?
was the answer?
Everyone kept pointing the fingers. So what happened? I was like, hello, sounding the alarm. We have 4 opportunities. There's 4 dates published. Let me educate all of you on how these federal programs work. Open your mouths now or we're gonna get screwed. You have 4 public comments. 4 opportunities. I attended 3 of the 4. There was somebody from the county present, and there was a couple staffers from elected Foster's and District 8's office present, right? They were just staffers that were there to take notes and report back. Where was city and county presence? So there was only, this is 7, so we're all fighting, 223 million. 7 counties are all fighting for this money. San Diego should be proud and privileged we were thrown in at the last second. Okay, there was only 1 public comment for the entire county, and that came from me.
Wow. Thank you for being there, but.
And that's not fair.
No.
I was just a soccer mom taking time off from watching my kids and sat in and did this on my free time and gave the only public comment asking to ensure that there was allocations and considerations, that the funding was equitable. Everything I asked for didn't occur. 16 million was supposedly to help all of our renters, our flood survivors. 16 million, but it was distributed across 7 counties. How much did San Diego get out of that 16 million? HCD got their cut. They got their admin fee for a few million. San Diego got $600,000 out of 16 million that was allegedly for the renter flood survivors. Now there's another 52 million to restore their homes. I think if we get 1 household to get approved, we would be lucky out of $52 million. So that's where the frustration is. We keep leaving money on the table because there is no strategic planning, right? And there is a plan. There's always been a plan, right? There's a nice pretty PDF that these consultants were paid several hundreds of thousands of dollars to publish. The plans have always been there, but there is no COO, there is no leadership to say, oh, a plan is a living, breathing document that is to be assessed
And follow.
and actually there's an exercise. It's done quarterly, annually in the private sector. In the finance world, I get fined from the SEC if I don't do it. So how come the government doesn't follow those same rules?
Strong mayor
Right?
system.
And it goes way beyond that. I don't even care about the mayor. This is operation.
It's a system.
And so I
He
do
got all
think
the
that
power.
there's room, because we're looking at, I just threw out all these numbers, right? How many millions were supposedly given to San Diego for DR 4758, yet we're never gonna see? And there's opportunity if we could all work together to coordinate. So that 12 million to me is important. I think this is great, but I would like to know what the city and the county is doing with their share and how it can be matched for what it was intended.
Yeah.
Because they submitted a proposal to HCD.
Yeah.
I would like to know where the true meaningful community engagement and the planning process is to ensure that we're not just doing what was done with the whole flood, pulling money here and there and blowing it and no impact.
Yeah.
No progress.
Put
Where
in
we
for a public work
could be
plan.
doing a lot. We could be saying, this is D4's critical spots. I have a map. We have every location GPS enabled. D4, D8, D9, this is the spot. This is where it needs to go. This is the highest point. We overlaid it with the floodplains. We've done the work already, but nobody will listen. And that's where the frustration is. So I'm happy to share my information. I don't want to take any more time today, but I do feel that there's a lot of room for not only this, but to take it even further.
Yeah, this feels like a small drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunity.
And I do think there is a lot of opportunity, and if we have the right players in the room that are already starting it, we need to work
Do
together.
that meaningfully.
Yeah.
100%. Thank you.
Thank
I want to
you.
be cognizant of everyone's time.
Yes.
It is 11. We have reached the end of the time for our workshop. I know we have a couple of other slides we can run through really quickly. I would love to get your contact information, definitely, and continue this conversation and learn from a lot of the wonderful work it sounds like you have done on the ground. And incorporate that in any way we can into both follow-on applications for this and then also additional coordination that I would like to consider pursuing within the city alone and then with the partnering jurisdictions and agencies.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
we maintain contact with the county, right? We're meeting next week with the new emergency management director to ensure that our concerns are being heard.
Great.
You know, we would love to bridge this and make it happen finally, because we know that when shit hits the fan, it gets dumped on us and we're
Yeah.
depleted, so.
I want to be really transparent from my own perspective here. I am a program manager in the energy division.
Yeah.
My job is to get the solar and the battery storage installed at the facility so that it can continue to operate when the grid goes down and provide power and whatever power related needs are helpful to communities. So everything we've talked about today beyond this grant application is outside of my purview and my role at the city. But I would very much like to do whatever I can from my position to try to connect some dots here and explore and see what we can incorporate within our grant and outside, so.
No, I
thank
appreciate
you
it.
again. I just wanna set expectations. I'm not a miracle worker.
Oh, no, trust me, the
But-
same thing we're telling you, we have told every single person that will listen all the way to the top.
Yeah.
It has been a consistent message across the board.
That's good.
Thank you, and
Yeah.
I think some things shared today, are important, right, like the coordination and investing in preparedness, so that's also an important part of the
Absolutely.
resilience hub. and
Fantastic
what we
feedback.
incorporated, so
Yeah.
we really appreciate your time. This is not gonna be the last time you can share your feedback either, so there are more opportunities, but Lindsay, if you wanna share about next steps.
Yeah, so I feel like we've talked about them quite a bit already. We're gonna incorporate your feedback into this follow-on grant application. I really hope it doesn't stop there from my own team and my involvement. There's a lot going on at the city. The fact that I have not heard about the $6 million for the flood recovery, is something I would like to address, internally.
Or the $8 million that the state hasn't reimbursed yet because the city never submitted for it.
Okay,
That's another thing, we're leaving money on the table
Yeah.
because there's no operations.
right.
Again, I know that's way above everyone in this room's pay grade, but still, it's the truth.
Yeah.
That's $8 million left on the table.
Yeah.
We spoke to the state, who made it crystal clear, the city hasn't even submitted for reimbursement yet.
Okay.
What's happening?
Yeah, good
And,
question.
and they're contradicting, dismantling promises on, benefits. And, trying to take the credits and all the positives from that designation. But on the flip side, they're doing things through housing and development to dismantle the progress.
Yeah.
And we see it, the greenhouse effect, the heat island effect, and you're gonna take away our green spaces? This makes no sense. How you gonna say you care about our safety and our resources and inadequate services that deal with infrastructure that are compounded when we have flood events and fires? You keep putting density in high-risk fire zones.
Yeah.
What is that about?
Yeah.
Just because they're close to a trolley or a bus hub? What's next? You gonna allow people to kill people as long as they're close to a trolley stop? I mean, the ideology behind the harms being unleashed onto our communities with housing is compounding the future flooding and fire situations. This don't make no sense the direction that we're going with the city council right now.
Yeah.
It's causing problems. We see the potential problems it's gonna cause with emergency evacuation routes. Just the density is not what you wanna do. When you have emergencies, it creates problems for these areas.
Yeah.
And they're dismissing the impacts from it. And it needs to stop. Put that in your report, please.
Well, thank you for sharing those impacts, and we're taking notes of that, so it's important.
If you wanna jump to the very last slide, we do, the planning department, again, not my team, but we have a heat risk survey that it's 8 questions. The feedback that we get from this survey, or that the planning department gets from this survey, we would love to incorporate into our own planning. It really is questions about what priorities you see the community needing during high heat events, so a lot of overlap with what we discussed today. This has been a super meaningful session. I really, again, appreciate everybody's feedback. Thank you for being here. The feedback we got today, I think, surpassed the expectations I had and the value that I thought we would get from these workshops. So again, really appreciate you being here. Look forward to continuing the conversation, and hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if you want some coffee, there's some on the way out.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time.
I appreciate it.
And we'll send out resources after, if you pledged your email, so.
Okay. Next meeting? don't, I ran in here, I can give you my information.
Sure. Let me write it for you.
This is, write it, what was your name? I'm sorry. Lisa. You're with the city too?
No, we actually work on the consulting team, that's how they do like the engagement.
Okay.
Oh, really? And I actually would like to connect with you to learn more about the potential purchase of your building, and your experience with that, and how you can be a resource and collaborate with you to purchase your building, you're more than happy. If you've ever seen
I think I met somebody there once. You guys have renters, right?
we do, we have restaurants.
Yeah, I think I met somebody there once. I can't remember. I think that was her name. Yeah, I mentioned her about this space.
Yeah.
It was a while back that we met, and then we ever reconnected. If you have my information, and that's the founder, Armand Harvey, so he's the founder of Harvey Foundation. So, yeah, there's my email and my phone number, that's my cell, so feel free to shoot me a text, and then we can connect if you want to, like,
Yeah, I was having my,
yeah, no, totally. So it's, yeah, I mean, look, and at the end of the day, and that's one of the things that I worked with CLT, that's why I've seen the growing pains, right? And also it's important, like, governance is critical. Governance is key. Not only governance, but putting all of the right controls in place and enforcing it, right? Because that's where I've seen a lot of great potential, like, kind of derail right away.
yeah, that's kind of like what we're doing now, we're always.
And then those are the things that with the territory, they're not, it's not a bad, and all of those things, but you put the right controls in place first and foremost. So that EDC is critical.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that are gonna set the impression for everyone else to follow.
Yeah.
Nip it in the bud instantly.
Yeah.
And you also lead by example. If you can't do those things, you're gonna drown, you know? So, happy to help whenever we can.
Collaborate.
Yeah. I know we came in your eldest meeting, that's typically what we do. Again.
Oh, we work on the.
Yeah.
Also, brand feedback.
Yeah. Because that's the one thing is that they wanna be included.
Yeah, we actually have a few cluster survivors on the call last night. That's good. Share a lot of their personal experience with my team and kind of experience. That's good. No, I wasn't at that one, but I think it was a lot different. Yeah. They shared some
Yeah, it's like, wait. Yeah, yeah.
I know we got your.
My email.
Just write it.
Yeah, that's fine. Here, I'll type it because as long as you want, I'll type it. You have my info. I didn't even like And what we learned is that we are good, we make a good adversarial, like, effort. It's hard. What can we do? I gave them all the information on it, and it's like, okay, it's really not really thought out. Right, so, how do you try? Yes, find a good after, you know, one that is, I didn't work for so long, however, I do feel like. Yes. Thank you. Yes. I want to speak with operations. I am a CFO, I run operations, I ran the largest labor union in Southern California. I'm not an idiot. I figured out how to reach out and being scared, not because I'm not here. I wanna work with you because you're your expertise in something that's it, right? So I am thankful to CDC is trying to build that, like, for example, like, for interviewing and hiring this management.
Okay.
You know, so I drilled all of that. I mean, those kind of consultants,
I mean,
I dropped them on people interviews. What is this? You know, so I do support the gentleman they move forward with, but that hire was, to me, in my opinion, a reflection of he's the best fit. He's not the one that's gonna take us to the next level. He's the best fit for today, right? And I was calling for someone that understands that. Yeah. So for me, it was, there's a lot more to 2026. There could be cyber attacks. There could be a number of different types of vulnerabilities that can be catastrophic, that you can't have somebody that retires. 5 years or so. That you have exactly, this is his job. So that council, every time there's a disaster, inclusive of LA, the first thing they did is they got all the stakeholders.
Okay.
That was the council. We had some oversight. I shouldn't have had to. County finance to report to be like, wait a minute. How did you guys get $1 million and you haven't done a single thing? And we are doing it for free. You know, I shouldn't have taken a year for the truth to come out, and then people to scramble running, or we were left with, you know, on our shoulders.